If you study medieval travel closely enough, one question always emerges. How did people survive weeks or months on the road without refrigeration, canned food, or supply chains? Knights on campaign, pilgrims walking to distant shrines, merchants crossing mountain passes, and sailors hugging hostile coastlines all face the same reality. Fresh meat spoiled within days, hunger weakened bodies, and judgment. Yet medieval travellers moved astonishing distances with reliable protein at hand. The answer lies in a preservation method so effective it shaped exploration, warfare, and trade for centuries. This guide explores that method in detail, not as folklore, but as applied survival science refined by necessity. What medieval people preserved, how they did it, why it worked, and how the same technique can still be used today form the core of this discussion. Why meat preservation defined medieval mobility? You see, in the medieval world, food was logistics. Armies failed when supply wagons broke down. Pilgrimages stalled when travellers fell ill from hunger. Unlike grain or dried legumes, meat provided concentrated energy, fat and strength. Preserving it was not optional. It was strategic. Salt was expensive and unevenly available. Smoke required infrastructure. Drying depended on climate. The most reliable solution combined all three elements in a disciplined process that minimized spoilage while maximizing portability. This process created what was known across Europe in many forms, but, it really shared the same core method. How salting and drying became the backbone of long-distance travel. Well, that's quite a story. The method centered on heavy salting, followed by controlled drying. Freshly slaughtered meat was cut into long, narrow strips or flattened slabs to increase surface area. This was not done for convenience, but honestly, for physics. Salt draws moisture from meat through osmosis, and, bacteria just cannot survive without water. The meat was packed in salt immediately, often layered in barrels or crocks. This initial salting phase could last several days, depending on thickness. Liquids drawn out were drained away repeatedly. Medieval sources emphasize this step because standing brine encouraged spoilage if neglected. Once sufficiently cured, the meat was hung in airflow. Sometimes this was outdoors under shelter, sometimes in lofts, and sometimes above low fires where smoke was incidental rather than dominant. The goal was dryness, not cooking. Why this method worked so reliably without modern science? Medieval people did not speak of microbes, but they understood outcomes. Salt reduced moisture. Dry air hardened surfaces. Time stabilized the meat. Combined, these forces created an environment hostile to rot. Fat content mattered. Lean meats, such as beef, venison and goat, preserved best. Excess fat was trimmed away because it turned rancid faster than muscle. This attention to detail explains why preserved medieval meats often appear stark and, quite austere in descriptions. The resulting product was hard, dark, and intensely flavoured. It was not meant to be eaten casually. It was survival food, rehydrated in stews or sliced thin and, well, chewed slowly. How travellers carried and used preserved meat on the road. Preserved meat was packed in cloth, leather or waxed wrappings, not airtight containers. Airflow, you see, prevented trapped moisture. Travellers kept it elevated in packs or saddlebags rather than pressed against damp materials. And when used, the meat was often soaked in water to remove excess salt and, well, restore some tenderness. This soaking water was discarded. The meat was then boiled, stewed with grains, or roasted slowly. Even small portions could sustain hard labour when combined with bread or porridge. Historical records from merchant caravans show rationing systems built around preserved meat, with precise allowances calculated per day of travel. This was not guesswork, it was practiced logistics. Regional variations, they followed the same core principle. Across Europe, the names might have differed, but the methods, well, they were remarkably aligned. In the southern regions, with those dry climates, biltong-like preparations began to appear. Meanwhile, northern areas tended to favour heavier salting and much longer drying. Coastal travellers, for instance, combined drying with exposure to the wind. Inland groups, on the other hand, relied much more heavily on the density of salt. What really united them all, though, was restraint. Over-smoking, for example, just masked spoilage instead of actually preventing it. Undersalting, well, that invited disaster. The balance, honestly, was something learned through generations of both failure and success. Now, let's consider how, modern survivalists can actually apply this medieval knowledge. The method, well, it remains viable today with just some basic tools. Fresh lean meat, coarse salt, airflow and time, those are really all you need. And cuts should be uniform for best results. Salting must be, aggressive but not careless. And drying, well, it must be protected from insects and moisture at all times. So, a modern practitioner can actually replicate medieval success just by using screen drying racks, ensuring shaded airflow and, well, careful monitoring. The result, really, is shelf-stable protein that requires no electricity and, I must say, rewards patience. This approach, interestingly enough, is particularly relevant for emergency preparedness, remote travel and off-grid living. It teaches discipline and respect for materials, traits that, honestly, medieval people depended on every single day. What this preservation method reveals, you see, is quite a bit about medieval intelligence. This was not primitive guesswork. It was, applied observation, refined over centuries. Medieval travellers trusted their preserved meat with their lives, and, well, that trust was earned. Understanding this method challenges the idea that pre-modern people lack technical knowledge. They lacked modern terminology. not understanding. Their solutions were robust because, well, failure was unforgiving. Why this knowledge still matters even today. In a world that's increasingly dependent on, fragile systems, medieval meat preservation reminds us that durability is built, not just assumed. It shows that long journeys, whether physical or historical, are really sustained by preparation rather than convenience. If this deep exploration of backyard wisdom and historical survival added value to your understanding, please subscribe to the channel and share this guide with others who respect practical history. These lessons endure only if they are remembered and well used.